duo is the best duo in the league right now? There are so many good options to choose from, but first, there was another giant trade in the NBA on Thursday. This time, the Oklahoma City Thunder trading Russell Westbrook to Houston for Chris Paul and future first-round picks in 2024 and 2026, and pick swaps in 21 and 25. This, of course, comes on the heels of the Thunder's trade of MVP finalist Paul George to the Clippers last week, and places the Thunder into a long rebuilding stage after a decade of winning nearly two-thirds of their games in Oklahoma City. It marked the end of an era, of a dynasty that never was. And it's a sad day in Oklahoma City and for all small market franchises who saw the Thunder as a beacon of hope. The Thunder drafted 3 future MVPs in 3 consecutive years and got 1 finals appearance out of it. That stings. But it's actually a place the Thunder have been before. See, this run started in 2007 with Sam Presti trading away Ray Allen. He then drafted Durant, Westbrook, and Harden in consecutive years. Obviously worked out, although Harden and Durant eventually needed to go elsewhere in order to blossom. Harden unlocked his game in Houston, and the Rockets have unquestionably become his team, playing in his image. Now we get to revisit the pairing with Westbrook as both of them continue to chase that ring. At first glance, it might seem like an odd pairing. Harden thrives with shooters around him. Westbrook is a below-average shooter coming off the worst shooting year of his career. But according to sources, Rockets GM Daryl Morey believes that Westbrook's shooting will improve because he's never been around as many guys who can shoot and space the floor for him. But mostly, Morey believes that his pairing will work because it's what Westbrook wanted. When Westbrook agreed to his 5-year, $205 million extension 2 years ago, the Thunder told him that if they ever didn't have the kind of team around him that would allow him to contend, they'd trade him, according to sources. And throughout those trade negotiations, GM Sam Presti worked with Westbrook's agent, Thad Fouché, to trade him to a team that he preferred. The Detroit Pistons and Miami Heat also had significant interest and, in some ways, more compelling packages. But Russ preferred Houston, and so that's where he was traded. I'd like to welcome an NBA writer and lifelong Oklahoma City resident, Royce Young, to The Jump. Royce, how are the Thunder fans handling this news of trading Russ away?
It's been a weird day, Ramona, in Oklahoma City. I think for a lot of people, there's kind of this balance between understanding the reality of the situation after Paul George was traded, and it was kind of like, you know, watching your son go off to college and like understanding like it had to come to this at some point. But at the same point, there's this romantic element, right, where everybody wanted to see Russell Westbrook entire career in Oklahoma City. And a lot of people have compared Westbrook throughout his career to Kobe Bryant, and there was kind of that same type of feeling. It was like, forget about if it's bad in the final years, forget about if the team is terrible and it's all built around Westbrook and it's not good for the future. Do right by him, keep him in Oklahoma City, make him wear that jersey for his whole career. But this was really, like you said, Ramona, this was a two-way thing. This was accommodating what Westbrook wanted, and this was also Westbrook doing what's best for his own personal career. So it's been a weird day in Oklahoma City. A lot of people don't know how to handle it. A great reporter here in Oklahoma City, I know, my wife, Carrie, she was actually downtown at a splash pad, and she told me that a lot of people were going into the Thunder shop and buying up all the Westbrook jerseys in there. It was packed, she said. People all coming out wearing Westbrook jerseys because they're getting them while they're hot, and they're going to wear that jersey proudly, I think, around Oklahoma City. Well,
you had a great column today, and you mentioned every day there is Russell Westbrook Day. And he's the one guy who's going to have a statue out front. Like, he may not finish his career in Oklahoma City now, but he's the one guy who'll have a statue in front of that arena, in front of Chesapeake Arena. How did this deal come about, and where the Thunder were willing to trade Russ to a Western Conference rival when they've already been down this path before with Harden?
Yeah, like you said in that opening, Ramona, it was basically kind of out of necessity. And look, the Thunder had kind of 3 options here that they could look at. They could look at trying to take some of the assets they acquired from the Paul George trade and try to kickstart the engine one more time. See if they could flip those for another profile player to make the team competitive in the West again. They could basically try to trade Russell Westbrook like they did, or they could keep him. And that was not really that great of an option, just kind of staying in NBA purgatory with Russell Westbrook, who probably wasn't really all that happy about the situation. It was pretty clear, Ramona, once Paul George was traded, Russell Westbrook was very open to the idea of him being traded as well. Sources told me that Russell Westbrook, when he understood that Paul George wanted to be traded from Oklahoma City. He didn't do anything to try to change his mind. He understood the situation. He was fine with Paul George leaving, and if anything, he saw it as his opportunity to finally make a change as well. So it seems awkward and uncomfortable that the partnership between the Thunder and Westbrook ran its course, but he wanted to go to the Rockets. It was his preferred destination all along, and the Thunder wanted to accommodate that as best as.
All right, well, I think we're losing Royce there, but one of the biggest things that we have in this trade, and we spent that whole time talking to Royce about Russell Westbrook, we did not mention Chris Paul at all, guys. So when you have, like, Chris Paul is the other guy going in this trade, and we had talked about him before as one of the toughest guys one of the toughest contracts to move because he had so much remaining on that deal, but also where he was physically. The Thunder is not in a place where they're trying to rebuild around Chris Paul.
Hell no. Hell no, Ramona. They've got to get him out of there and add to their treasure trove of assets in the moment. But we saw that graphic. Look at all the stuff that Houston had to add on to make sure that contract disappeared. If you're the Thunder, you make the next best deal you can, get Paul out of there, continue to hit the reset button, but it shows where he's at in his career and his feeling around the league, because this is not the Chris Paul that we all grew up with and the guy that everybody loved for so long. This is a completely different player with an awful contract, and if you're the Thunder, you have to do whatever you can in the moment to go forward without him.
And they can't move him until December 15th. So he's going to spend a couple months there and return to the place where he played games as a member of the Hornets back in the day. He's going to do some mentoring for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And then come December 15th, they're going to be calling up Miami, calling up Detroit, calling up Minnesota. The same teams that are interested in Russell Westbrook are interested in Chris Paul.
Well, I think this highlights who had the leverage in this deal. So Russ gets his preferred destination. Chris Paul, there was talks of sending him to Miami in a three-way deal. Miami, though, was interested only in Russell Westbrook at that point, and the Thunder felt like we want to accommodate Russell Westbrook and where he wants to go. Chris Paul then ends up in Oklahoma City where, yeah, Dave, you said he began his career, but this is not exactly the situation he wants to be in at this stage.
Oh, certainly not. I mean, he is in a stage of his career where he went to Houston trying to get that ring. Thunder are so far away from a ring right now. I mean, they were close in 2012.
Right.
They're back in the dark ages in terms of starting up this process again. They're going to use all those draft picks to slowly build up a contender. And so they will do right by him. I know, right? They will do right by him. But they can't do right by him until December 15th. So he's going to be...
Just a clarification. I think he can be traded before because they didn't take back any assets in this trade. So you don't have to necessarily wait on that.
Okay.
And my understanding is that Sam Presti is already in discussions with Leon Rose and Stephen Heumann, who are Chris Paul's agents, to figure out this situation on Chris. And if he's a bit in purgatory, right? He can show up and pass the physical and show up and be a good leader around that team. But if he doesn't want to be there long term, they have to look to move him, which is as hard for them to move as it was for the Rockets, who spent all summer trying to do that. All right, Nick and Dave, here are my next big questions. Russ wanted to be there with Harden. Harden wanted Russ to be there with him. Can they coexist on the court? I mean, we tried this before.
No. No, as soon as I saw this deal go down, I went, really? The talent is there. I don't know about the fit, though. This is a Rockets team that loves to go up and down and loves to take threes. Russ is really struggling from that point of view. And Ramona, you mentioned it as far as Morey's feeling in how Russ is going to get more open looks than he's ever seen before. Russ got open looks all throughout the postseason series against Portland. It didn't go very well at all. So I like the idea that Houston is trying something, because if you keep Chris Paul on that team, you've got no chance. He is just not close to what he used to be. Maybe Russ can hit the Wayback Machine and knock down more threes, but no, I don't believe as we sit here today that Houston is that much better to a point where you feel like maybe they can win a title next season.
Yeah, well, Brian Windhorst said on the Hoop Collective podcast that as soon as the Paul George deal went down, there was communication between Harden and Russ about trying to make this happen. So they have the intentions going into this thing to make it work. And I could see them trying to work it the way the Lakers did last year, where in transition, anyone besides LeBron were welcome to the ball. and in half court you go to LeBron. So they'll say in transition, Russ, take the ball. Half court it's going to be more James. But that's so much easier said than done because they're both just used to having the ball in their hands. Two of the top usage rates in league history, more so than Kobe Bryant. And we know Kobe Bryant's a guy who's considered a ball hog and a gunner. Well, these guys, putting them together, it's going to be a tough proposition, and Mike D'Antoni is going to earn every single cent of his contract next year.
Well, when Mike had Chris Paul and James Harden together, they oftentimes did not play them together on the court. Their minutes did not overlap as much as possible. It's stagger. My understanding is that's the same plan with Harden and Westbrook going forward here. They'll play at most 20 to 24 minutes together. The rest of the time they'll lead their offense by themselves. But, okay, so let's throw this one out. Russ is not the shooter that you put next to James, but can he be as effective as a cutter? Because Harden oftentimes gets double teamed, and if you don't double team him, he'll score himself. If you double team him, Russ is just diving to the basket.
Who's going to have the ball? That's what I want to know. Are you going to play James Harden more off the ball than we've seen? Because when you watch Houston in the last couple seasons, it was like, here, James, take it, do whatever you want with it. Is he going to be okay with that? Because that's the thing that would scare me. When you watch this team kind of come together, Russ always has the ball in his hands. James always has the ball in his hands. So who is going to take that backseat offensively to say, okay, you do this, and we'll set you up in better positions to score?
I mean, Russ Westbrook should be calling up Dwayne Wade. Because Dwayne Wade had to learn that cutting role when LeBron came to Miami and had the ball in his hands, and he was able to find ways to be effective. And Dwayne Wade didn't have the outside shooting game, much like Russ. And so I'd be looking up, you're calling up Miami scouting department, getting all the game tapes you can from 2010 to 2014 of the way Wade played with LeBron.
Well, you can call them up, but you also chose Houston over Miami, so maybe they're not that helpful right now. After the break, we're going to discuss like a lot of players in the league that Dwayne Wade has swapped jerseys with last season aren't going to be on that same team this season. Is it a curse? The curse of Dwayne Wade's jersey swap? We'll discuss. But first, from this day.